at least over 70% of young women, majority being students, have experienced some form of technology facilitated GPV. And this means assault, this means defamation, this means revenge pornography, or rather sharing unconsented pornographic materials of your partners or other friends, or however they are acquired, My name is Shikoh Kihika. I'm an activist, a human rights defender, and a woman who loves her country so much to defend it online. So again, I'm what they call a digital activist of today. As we reflect on the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, it will be important for us to look at a few things, or a few scenarios of women who've gone through assault, or platforms that have been created to protect our women, but at the same time, the future of digital platforms, and how we as a people can safeguard our women or protect our women from bullying, assault, or what we call revenge pornography. Being 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, there's a lot to reflect on. And one of the things that I would really love to reflect on is my journey and growth of social media. I grew up at a time where banters were banters, not even now. And it is, and when I say grew up, is I grew up online, where people would have a lot of banters that were so uncalled for, so unworth, that made so many young women leave social media platforms. And this, I'm talking about X, when it was Twitter, the bluebird. And I see these things now come back to life, and I've seen that especially after the protest 2024, where we've seen so many conversation, or rather online bullying, and so much bullying against women. And I think for me, the one thing that I think really stood out was, like, we had a badge, or a surge of so many users, new users, that we would not have seen on a normal day, or rather someone very young and new into the platform. And they came at a time where algorithms were really working for them because of the wave of whatever was happening in Kenya. And now, after the protest, we no longer have the engagements. Remember, X now pays people depending on your engagement, or your level of engagements. So with this at hand, people needed to play around with algorithms, and this again brought the new face of assault and violence and bullying against women. And when I say this, and I think I could say there are several scenarios, but when you see a young woman post a photo, and people come at her for how she looks, and some come, and I think there's a new disease where, if I see you, I want to dictate how you should look. If I see you, I want to think that beauty means you have to look like a certain standard, or how you look. And I think, if I could give a story, I don't know if if this is the right time, but if I could give the story, is there's a lady who bought an iPhone 17, and she was really happy about it, and she even posted it online. But because she has always posted her business online, people started questioning if her business could really afford that. And I'm like, can't a woman just save up for something? Can't a woman be happy? Can't a woman even be gifted, But reducing this to look like, or to defame her and make her look like she used her body to acquire that, for me was really sad. And especially looking back and saying, we've really done a lot of work to deal with online bullying, to build the confidence of women online, to create safe spaces also for women to communicate and express themselves. But when it comes to a point where, for these young women to express themselves, they have to always watch on their shoulders and hope that nobody bullies them, or hope that nobody really comes for them. For me, it's really scary. And I think during this month, or these 16 days, the one thing that we should ask ourselves or reflect on is, how safe are we, or how safe are our women, and how safe do they feel while on these platforms? There's a research that was done last year by a UNFP that showed that at least over 70% of young women, majority being students, have experienced some form of technology facilitated GPV. And this means assault, this means defamation, this means revenge pornography, or rather sharing unconsented pornographic materials of your partners or other friends, or however they are acquired, So for me, again, keeps asking myself, why is it so easy to sexualize women online? Why is it so easy to pick a conversation with a woman and reduce it to a sexual conversation, or sexual kind of sexualizing a woman in whatever form we feel like. So for me, I honestly think the biggest fear I have at the moment, or the biggest worry that most of us will have as we mark 16 days, is the shrinking spaces for women in digital spaces, and how safe our women feel. And as we do this, we're speaking at the age of artificial intelligence, where now we can easily create pictures and videos of individuals in whatever form we feel like. Again, are we now going to experience a new territory of violence, of assault, of defamation? And in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's a new territory for women, and unfortunately, if we don't equip our women enough, we might see most of them again leaving these platforms, or we must see these platforms closing down for them. This does not mean that men do not sometimes get the bullying, or in return get the assault. It does happen, but compared to 60% to 65% of young women, and especially students who go through it, we can only see men at 35.5%. Again, this is based on the research that was done by UNFP, and I think this is last year, 2024, if I'm not wrong. So for me, again, is trying to rethink and trying to watch the journey, as we have so many young women who are again coming up into these platforms, and asking myself, how do these platforms protect our women? Are they equipped enough to protect the safety of our women, the mental well-being of our women? Or is sexual harassment part of the algorithmic approach towards people getting engagements, towards people getting paid by these platforms? Because I think now it's become a whole thing. I see Meta is also doing the same thing. So are we enhancing assault in the name of, or are we enhancing the technology facilitated GBV by offering payments, and for people to just, I can just post anything to get clicks? And unfortunately, in the world we live in today, violence sells more. Unfortunately, the sad stories sell more. So we saw recently the case of the lady who was violated in Meru. Though through social media, she at least is headed towards getting justice. But some of the comments that kept coming and running on these platforms for me were really scary, because there's no excuse to rape, there's no excuse to assault. So when people sympathize with these perpetrators, for me it's really sad. But then again, equally as we use social media to pursue justice, and I love platforms like Osikimia that have really made social media the center of justice for victims. As we use social media to seek justice, how can we then also use social media to empower women to speak up without feeling like they're going to be judged, defamed, or assaulted in any way? How are we going to equip these platforms, or our women again, to be able or to feel protected by the same platforms that they use every day, or the same airtime that they use every day? So people, in the age where femicide has become a thing that should not be, in the age where assault against women has become a vibe that should not be, we've been given an opportunity to redeem ourselves, to learn and educate each other. I ask us all to stand united against technology facilitated GBV, or rather digital violence against women and girls, because we can only win this fight if me and you join our hands and say no to violence against women. Happy 16 days of activism against gender based violence.